Hello, everyone. My name is Joshua Bulavko, and I'm a junior at Randolph College. It's my pleasure to present our summer research project titled History and Historic Preservation of Rivermont Avenue and Beyond at the 2021 Symposium of Artists and Scholars. I hope you enjoy it. Stay tuned for before and after photos at the end of the slideshow. So just to give everyone an idea of what our purpose was with this project, we wanted to spread the message that old places do in fact matter. We wanted to share the stories of Lynchburg's history, particularly that of Rivermont Avenue, from current and past residents. We did this by reviewing interviews from previous summer research projects to compose narratives to be disseminated on the Friends of Rivermont Historical Society website. I utilized 5 flash drives worth of interviews, about 20 recordings in total, with past and present Rivermont residents. Dr. Shareko and I collaborated to create captivating narratives for all interested parties to enjoy, especially public history enthusiasts in Lynchburg, as well as present residents and business owners that might be interested in the history of their properties. Each narrative provides insight into how life on Rivermont Avenue has evolved over the years, and it is important to know how Lynchburg once was so we can address things in the future, especially in terms of social justice. Moving on to the Friends of Rivermont refresh. We sought the help of Stimulus, a marketing and web design company, to improve the appearance of the website. This is very challenging just because there was so much to do, and also the fact that many of these changes took time. These changes, of course, would make the website easier to use and understand, as well as make it more appealing to the eye. Once this was done, we performed research of the ownership histories of each and every property in the 3 sections of Rivermont Avenue. Lower Rivermont, which is 301 to 1226, Middle Rivermont, 1301 to 2442, and Upper Rivermont, 2450 to 3409. We did this by utilizing city resources as well as paper records that Dr. Shareko had previously compiled. Online city resources only went back so far. I then created an Excel sheet with a wide variety of information for the 275 properties on Rivermont. This included addresses, property names, types of property, present owners, previous owners, etc. I was able to update the ownership histories for all 275 properties, while Dr. Shareko updated much of the anecdotal information for each structure. It was certainly remarkable to see how and when people own these properties. We then added a Rivermont Memories tab where we could continue to upload narratives. Assembling Rivermont narratives. Narratives for Rivermont Memories were composed utilizing interviews from past SRPs. Interestingly enough, Rivermont was one of the first designed suburbs in Virginia, so these narratives go back a long ways. They humanize history on the avenue with stories of the people that lived and did business on Rivermont. They provide insight into what life in Lynchburg was like, businesses and institutions that have come and gone. Also, select narratives touched on issues of race throughout Lynchburg's history. This is extremely relevant as it is important to recognize the facts of Southern history to ensure that injustices like those of the Jim Crow era or even modern times are never replicated again. The first narrative that I would like to highlight is that of Annie Massey. She spent all but a few of her 83 years in Lynchburg, but passed away in 2015. She was born at Virginia Baptist Hospital, which is at 2216 Rivermont Avenue, in 1931. Her father grew up on Diamond Hill, while her mother grew up on Daniels Hill. Her maternal grandfather had purchased 17 Rivermont Avenue around 1902, and this is where Annie grew up. She was an admirer of the arts since her days at the Garland Road School, and she became an incredible artist herself. She's talked about her childhood, sledding on Norfolk Avenue, and roller skating to school. Annie first attended St. Mary's Junior College in North Carolina, and later transferred to Randolph-Macon Women's College. Here she was an English major and with a minor in Latin and Greek. Though she and her husband William met in high school, they moved to Charlottesville temporarily, before moving back to Lynchburg in 1963. She taught English at EC Glass from 1955 to 1960. And she talked especially about becoming involved in the movement to name Rivermont Avenue a historic district. There was a lot of struggles with this, but it took a few tries in the city council meetings. She was both president of the Friends of Rivermont Historical Society and the Lynchburg Historical Foundation. Next, we have Bob McDaniel. He too was born at Virginia Baptist Hospital in 1936, right down the road from Randolph. He passed away in 2018. As he grew up in the 30s and 40s, it was his family's African-American housemaid, Emma, that raised Bob. What really stood out to us was Emma, and Bob had fond memories of how she made homemade dandelion wine for the adults in the family to enjoy, and it was Emma that really raised Bob. She walked Bob to Garland Road School each day. Bob would regularly frequent the Jones Library, which had a sensational children's section. Unfortunately, like many establishments in the South at the time, the Jones Library barred African Americans from coming in. For many years, African Americans were not even allowed on the avenue unless they were in uniform heading to work. Shops and other businesses that Bob talked about, both small and large, have come and gone throughout Lynchburg's history. In downtown, there was J.C. Penney, Sears Roebuck, Guggenheimer's, and more. On Rivermont, we had Piggly Wiggly, Katie Mundy's Columns Restaurant, which is now the Randolph College Admissions Office, Rivermont Pharmacy, and more. Though downtown has been revitalized in the past few years, many stores were affected by the rise of the Wards Road area, as well as local shopping plazas. Next, we probably have my favorite narrative, that of Dr. William Quillian Jr. He was born in Nashville, Tennessee in 1913. He became the president of Randolph-Macon Women's College in 1952. He lived at the old president's house with his wife Margaret. Here they hosted many figures, including Pearl S. Buck and Elizabeth Taylor, whose husband, John Warner, was campaigning for a Virginia U.S. Senate seat at the time. This is a seat he held for over 30 years. Under Dr. Quillian's leadership, the college increased financial support with its connection to the Methodist Church. Multiple building additions were made to the college at this time. They included Bell Residence Hall, Houston Chapel, new athletics facilities, the Mayer Art Museum, affiliated with the National Gallery, and the Leggett Building. Though controversial, Dr. Quillian directed the Board of Trustees to eliminate sororities due to their questionable reputation in a small community. But most importantly, Dr. Quillian integrated the college. Many community members were frustrated at the time with Dr. Quillian's progressiveness. The News and Advance reportedly questioned Dr. Quillian's actions. There was a, quote, disturbance on the campus one night when a speaker from the YWCA, who happened to be African American, came to the college to speak. He also supported many student sit-ins. Dr. Quillian passed away in 2014, shortly before his 101st birthday. Next, we have another familiar face to Randolph-Macon Women's College, as well as Randolph College, Muriel Casey. Muriel Zimmerman Casey, class of 53, left New York City to come to Randolph-Macon Women's College in 1949. Here in the picture to the right, she is pictured with Heather Garnett, class of 86, and Rebecca Dixon, class of 61. She mentioned that she was rushed into a sorority within her first week on campus. Muriel immersed herself in many elements of college life in Lynchburg. She participated in athletics, went to Smith Hall theater performances, she had nights out at the Paramount and Isis theaters downtown, and she also mentioned that finding good food wasn't a problem, as all residence halls had their own chef. There were many good restaurants in town, such as the Virginian Hotel and Katie Mundy's Columns, which I mentioned is now the Randolph College Admissions Office. She also mentioned that the Cavalier and Blue Dahlia restaurants were off limits to Randolph-Macon Women's College students for many years, but some students were able to keep it quiet if they went. She worked at the all-female Seven Hills School on Rivermont Avenue before coming back to the college. The college was evolving during this time, as I mentioned, with Dr. Quillian's building additions and renovations, as well as the recent integration. Then she decided to direct the efforts of the Randolph-Macon Women's College Alumni Relations Office from 1972 to 2003. The Alumni House was later named after her because of her dedication to the college. She volunteered and participated with various organizations throughout her career, such as the Council for Advancement and Support of Education in Washington, D.C., the Trinity Episcopal Church in Lynchburg, the Lynchburg Mental Health Association, the Women's Club of Lynchburg, the American Association of University Women, and the Daughters of the American Revolution. Finally, we have Drs. Clifton and Dorothy Potter. Clifton was born at Marshall Lodge Memorial Hospital on Grace Street, and he lived at 456 Rivermont Avenue, which is the old George and Mary Jones house. In this house, he discovered secrets. He heard strange sounds, which he later found out to be an elevator used by General George Jones to get upstairs, but it had long since been removed. Is this another ghost story on the avenue? That's up for interpretation. Clifton also mentioned that he had an incredibly useful job at the Jones Library. This is where he furthered his passion for academia, and he never got lost in the library again, even when they moved to England, where Clifton was a Fulbright at the University of Oxford. Both attended Lynchburg College, which is now known as the University of Lynchburg, and they would return to the school to teach until their retirement together in 2018. Clifton and Dorothy both mentioned that issues of race were present during their lives in the South. Clifton's Yankee grandmother protested after being told to move from a seat next to an African-American woman on the Rivermont trolley. She reluctantly agreed to avoid a violent conflict. Clifton was also a target of abuse at E.C. Glass High School for his progressive views to desegregate schools. Both remain very courageous in their fight against the stigma of racism. So some of you may ask, so what? Why should I care about these narratives? And I would argue it has never been more crucial for us, especially in these tumultuous times, to better understand the past so we can move forward, not to mention the fact that there are clear benefits of humanizing history. It is enlightening to know what businesses have come and gone. We can look back on these businesses with nostalgia and always be thinking about how things once were, everywhere we go. We can have different perceptions of history, but the truth should never be ignored. It's never been more important in these tumultuous times to understand the truth of how life was for African Americans in the South and how it still is. We must push to complicate the master narrative. The purpose of this project was extremely important to Dr. Shareko and I, and our continuous hope is to inspire more individuals to get involved with efforts of historic preservation. Thank you so much. Now we will move through before and after photos of various properties on Rivermont Avenue. If you would like to know more about these properties, I or Dr. Shareko would be happy to answer your questions. First, we have 301 Rivermont, which is the Virginian Apartments. This was a couple years ago this picture was taken, and now it has been renovated and it looks great today. Next, we have 306 Rivermont. This was a seafood restaurant for a few years, was vacant for a while, but now it is Bacon Street Bagels, a very popular spot, and I highly recommend it. They have great bagel sandwiches. Next, we have 401 Rivermont Avenue, which for many years was an auto service location, and it actually used to be where they kept the trolleys for Rivermont Avenue that used to go up and down the street. But now it is being remodeled to Trolley Bond Lofts, another place where people can live on Rivermont Avenue. Next, we have 421 Rivermont, which is known as the Ellington to many locals. Unfortunately, it has become dilapidated over the past few years. They really don't know what to do with it, but someone is has bought it, and it will be remodeled for hopefully in the next few years. Next, we have 434 Rivermont, which is the old Jones Library. Unfortunately, it has seen better years, and this picture was taken a couple years ago, but it honestly doesn't look much better than this. This is also where a statue used to be located of George Morgan Jones, and its twin used to be located on the campus of Randolph-Macon Women's College. As you can see, this statue was also removed. We have various houses, too, that have been remodeled. 1371 Rivermont Avenue. This is the way it looks today. Fresh coat of paint does a lot. We have 2001 Rivermont, which is now an apartment complex, but it used to be the Virginia School of the Arts, and it also used to, before that, it was the Seven Hills School. And this is the way it looks today. A lot of apartments are in this space. 2144 Rivermont. Here, this picture was taken a couple years ago. A lot of trees were surrounding it. It was really hard to get a good view of the house, but this is the way it looks today. 2244 Rivermont also used to be part of the Virginia School for the Arts, but now it is a condo complex. 2711 Rivermont, which is now the Randolph Admissions Office, used to be, as I said earlier in the presentation, Katie Mundy's Columns restaurant, and this is the way it looks today. And finally, 3021 Rivermont. This is known as the Villa Maria. Not much has changed. It still looks like an awesome house and an awesome place to live, lots of land, and this is the way it looks today. Thank you all so much again.